What is up, everybody? What is up? This is another episode of Back and Forth. Today I wanted to explore the James Harden situation. A couple of days ago, I posted into MW about, asking whether or not James Harden was past his prime. And the reason why I asked is because I kind of want to figure out whether or not we are being too hard on him, right? Apparently, now that he's on Philly, he looks as though he's coming up a little bit short. And I just want to make sure we're actually seeing that he is coming up short, or are there other reasons? So for most of the morning, I've been doing like a deep dive on like the situation, asking Philly fans, looking up stats, looking up YouTube videos, and I think that I have figured it out. But let's take a look at the back and forth on the wall. So give me a second. Let's tag a few friends and do a deep dive on whether we're too hard on James Harden. Whether Okay, I'm back. So again, this is a deep dive into whether or not James Harden is, if he's just coming up short. Now, different people in the group gave various reasons as to why they think that he is not the James Harden that we're used to seeing. And a part of me wants to explore whether or not we should be looking for the James Harden we're used to seeing. Could it be that we're stuck in the past and we expect to see something that may not be like reality at this point? So I'm going to take a look at that. Again, I posted the question whether or not James Harden is still in his prime. I know that Stephen A. Smith recently posted his theory on why James Harden may be playing the way he is, and we can see whether we agree on that or not. But let's take a look at the back and forth on the wall. So I'm going to put up some of some of my favorite comments from the day, and then I'll tell you what I found, because I think I'm right about this. Hold on one second. So again, the back and forth featuring comments from the people in this group. So go ahead and add your friends if you want their ideas featured. But I asked again, is Harden past his prime because of what we've been seeing? And responses on that thread from Javier was, yeah, a few years ago he was considered the best shooting guard in the league. This year, I don't think he was top 5. That's the question. He probably wasn't, but again, I think I have my reasons for this, right? Jose says, I think we give him a full season in Philly. Could be a new system. Ken says, I think this is what happens when you show up every regular season out of shape. At some age, you can't work your way back. Now, this is what Stephen A. said. Says he does, if things don't work out, Doc Rivers could be gone and D'Antoni in, right? Who wants him as a coach? Harden and Morey. Lamont said he wouldn't be surprised one bit if that was the plan, that Harden wanted to get D'Antoni in. And James said it was one of the dumbest things he's ever heard. Yeah, it could be. I thought it might be a stretch, but then again, it it may not be that much of a stretch. We've seen basketball politics over the last few years when it comes to coaching. In the group, it was a big discussion about whether or not Steve Nash was qualified for the job that he has. And as you guys know, D'Antoni is an assistant coach for the Nets. And I mean, do you not think that he's an assistant coach for the Nets because James Harden was there? And do you think that they might have put him on the coaching staff because he knows how to get the best out of James Harden? Right? So let's not pretend that coaching politics doesn't exist. And so Stephen A. Smith may not be too far off in his thoughts regarding whether or not James Harden may be trying to get D'Antoni. It's a conspiracy theory-ish, but it's not far out of the league of what we've seen. And like obviously D'Antoni is quite overqualified to be an assistant coach anyway, so that might be a possibility. But I'm not gonna put it on James Harden that he's throwing games or not performing as well as he could because of wanting to get his coach. I did some digging just to see whether or not James Harden isn't performing as well as we would have expected him to. Now, let's just think about basic like points per game and compare like what he was doing in Brooklyn last year versus what he's doing this year and see. So I'm just gonna sorry about that, I messed that up. I'm just gonna verbally like move some things around so we can see like his back and his free throws, for instance, because I think that's a big deal, right? So this might be a little bit hard to see, but I'm gonna try to explain it. This spread is basically me looking at the last 5 years of James Harden's free throw percentage, and I'll give you a reason why in a short bit. Let me just make sure that we are doing this properly. And yes, so okay, so I looked at the last 5 years. Why? Because somebody on the thread, Vinny, brought up a very good point that James Harden hasn't been the same since the rule change. And the rule change were specifically set, I think in the summer of last year, before this season, to sort of take a look at and maybe cut down the amount of unnecessary fouls that were being called on defenders for shooters like a James Harden or like a Steph Curry or any of those players that get a ton of foul calls drawn. And I'll give you an example. So here you'll see like in 2017, 2018, James Harden had 8.7 free throws made and 10.1 free throws called a game, right? In 18-19, he had 9.7 for 11 fouls called on his behalf per game. In the 19 to the 20 season, he made 10.2 free throws based off of 11.8, basically 12 fouls called in his favor per game. 2021, we have 6.6 free throws made to 7.3, 2021 to 2022 current season right now, 7.9 free throws made for 8.9 called. Now look at the years. Look at the difference between 1920 and 2021. Now, okay, the rule went into effect last year summer, right? But in this change, you'll see that the difference is not just the numbers, not just the free throws, but this is when he went from Houston to Brooklyn. And the difference is there are more shooters, there are more options on the court. He wasn't the primary focus of the defense. And so it's just about balls. I almost said just about ball spreading. It's about spreading the ball around and him not getting as many shots, and him not getting as many plays called for him. And then, this year, you'll see it just kind of continued a little bit, right? Now, I think the bump up in free throws from last year to this year, even though there's a rule change, could be because, Kyrie couldn't play for a part of the season because of the vax status. So that increased the amount of time that James Harden had the ball. But as you can see, there's a significant cliff drop off between 1920 and 2021, and then it was reinforced with the rule change. And I think this is a big point. So if you're not familiar with the rule change, I'm going to go into what the exact rule is. So here's what I found via The Atlantic, right? There are three parts of this new NBA foul rule change, right? Number one, when a shooter launches or leans into a defender at an abnormal angle, the refs they'll use discernment, but they'll no longer call it. The second portion of this thing is when a shooter kicks his leg up or to the side at an abnormal angle. The third part is when an offensive player abruptly veers off his path sideways or backward into a defender. Now, number two isn't typical of James Harden game, but definitely number one and number three we've seen a few times through his career. If our team has been playing his and we're naturally like not with it. Sorry, let me fix my screen, guys. Thank you. So we've definitely seen number one and three. Again, I'll put it back on the screen, where James Harden has launches or leans into a defender at an abnormal angle. Maybe he'll hook the arm, right? We've seen James Harden go in for a drive and maybe hook backwards and then flare up his hands and get a foul call. We've definitely seen him kind of, I guess, pump faking and luring defenders to drape over him. We've seen all the tricks that James Harden has done, and they're no more. Now, I do also agree with people in this group that there is sort of like a fitness thing. All right, I'm not gonna fat shame James Harden because we'll think of myself, but like I do believe that there is like some kind of weight factor. But what do we expect? Are we expecting a young, spry, young James Harden on OKC or transferring to the Houston Rockets? This is his 12th season, I think. So 12 seasons is a lot of mileage to have on your body. And I'm not the same fitness I was 12 years ago. I know you're not the same fitness you were 12 years ago. And yeah, what do we really expect at 12 years? It leads back to the prime, like whether or not he's in the prime. So yeah, And the last point that I thought was really good that was made on the wall is that it's a different system. In the last few years, he's been on a different team, right? So he went from Houston, he was there on there for 9 years, and then he like went to Brooklyn, which is a new system, and then now he's on Philly, which is a new system. So the I guess the mantra is like let him get a chance to settle, let him settle in this new system, right? Um, that's true, but y'all need to give the same kind of leeway to Russell Westbrook going from team to team. I digress. Let's stay on Harden. But yeah, a different system could be the case. As we saw with the free throw percentages, his free throws dropped off the year before the change, and that was due to him not being the primary person on the that people defend. You know, him not being the number one option, right? It's Kevin Durant. And so, the in this system with Embiid, he's not the number one option either. So yes, I'm not saying that means he can't be aggressive, but the rule change is significant, uh, just as significant as not being in a familiar system. So familiar system is number one. The number one of the reason why I think this is important. Not being in the same system as he was last year, and the rule change is significant because if you can't draw these fouls, then it's hard for you to drive, right? So a trick, like a side effect of having these fouls called on defenders at the volume that they were called at when he was on Houston, is that you get free range to run through the lane because people don't want to get into foul trouble. They don't want to touch you because they've touched you before and they had 3 or 4 fouls already called on you and don't want to get into foul trouble. So if the rule is actually kicking in to help slow down Harden, because no longer has he drawn like 1,900 fouls against everybody defending on the team opposing, he kind of has to figure out a new trick. That's really the crux of this. He's used to getting all these fouls called by what someone on the wall, just Sean, said is gimmicks. He's used to getting all these fouls called, and now that has been taken away. And so if your defenders are no longer in foul trouble and you're also simultaneously getting older, you're a little bit slower, you don't get the rule to your rule is not in your advantage. You have to figure it out. And at this late in his career, it's hard to teach somebody new tricks. Okay, so just to recap this show, there are 3 reasons why Harden is possibly showing a slowdown in his game. Number 1, different system, going from Houston to Brooklyn, now to Philly. In the past 3 years, those changes, it's hard for him to pick up things that he had throughout the duration of Houston. Number 2, the rule changes, the slowdowns of no longer being able to get the fouls he used to doesn't open up the lane and open up opportunities for him to score more points, especially drive through the lane. There's the age, right? He's 12 years in. He's going to have some slowdown. You're going to see it, right? Now, a complement of the top 3 reasons that I listed is maybe, he's trying to get into, I guess, get what he had before. I'm not gonna say that Stephen A is totally wrong, right? You try to get the system that works best for you, and Daryl Morey is already in Philadelphia. Maybe he wants D'Antoni, but I'm not gonna say that he's doing this on purpose to get the perfect executive staff surrounding him so that he's successful. So let's stay on the 3. I believe the 3 is right. Different system, rule changes, and age is the reason why James Harden looks a step slower than what we're used to. Uh, so, that being said, I want to thank you all for participating in back and forth. I see the comments going, and let me see if I could catch a few good ones. Edward says, no, don't give him that out due to playing on a new team. Sean D says, people are saying the greatest scorer ever. He just bends the rules. That step back is a trick. And Sharon, with the trick thing, said, no, instead of figuring out a new trick, he needs to actually play the game for real. Fake MVP. Again, thank you for joining back and forth. It's a daily show in 2MW where I look at the topics that we go back and forth with. I'm looking forward to more and more comments that I can share on our other show that's on our page called Total Rebound, where we rebound topics that we've discussed and all the good points associated with that as well. I'll see you tomorrow around the same time with another episode of Back and Forth.